Okay, hey, I don't know where to start. I am trying to take a video of everything that perhaps seems remarkable to me and significant, especially with what the Lord is doing in my life. Kay kabalugid ko kung ano ko ka malipaton. So, and I'm very blessed with today's quality time with the Lord. It's amazing, amazing. Uh, um, my quiet time is based in, I'm sharing this to myself. So this quiet time is about Psalm 51. So the historical background, this is when David writes a psalm about asking forgiveness to the Lord because of what he had done when he sent Uriah to battle to be killed, and when he committed adultery with Bathsheba. So at the end of the chapter, David was saying that, Lord, would you create a pure heart in me and renew a right spirit within me. So there's this question in my quiet time right now in the guide. It's actually the YouVersion Bible. Yeah, YouVersion Bible. So it's really good. The Lord had used it in my personal journey. And there was a question on the devotional content. It says, what does repentance look like in your life? So I wrote, desiring to start anew. I think repentance would mean it's not just stuck on the scene when you were asking forgiveness to the Lord, but it also meant really desiring to start anew, the action that comes after it. Because if it's just going to be repeated again and again, it only becomes a regret and not repentance after all. And so starting again by God's grace and power, of course dependent on God's grace, because you can never do anything without His help, without His strength, without His grace and His power. The next question asked, or was stated, how could following David's example of repentance strengthen your relationship with God? And I wrote it here. It somewhat gives hope that we come to the point of our lives that we fall, fail, and commit sin. David was called a man after God's own heart, and that is very, very good. I mean, wow. The privilege is wow. And I think anybody else would like that. I myself would want to hear that from the Lord. I really would want to be called a woman after God's own heart. But it came to a realization that everyone, since we are all human, everyone else would come to a point of a failure and sin. But this gives understanding to everyone else, especially for Christians perhaps who's in the process of understanding God's amazing grace. And when I was younger, I was thinking of an idealistic, perfectionist kind of faith. When I haven't really understood yet what grace really means, and so I was thinking that once you're in the Lord, it is very hard to commit sin, or if you committed sin, it's a great tragic event of your life. But growing, this is one of the realizations the Lord is telling us, that no one is perfect. Everybody else would come to a point of committing sin, and David is not exempted of that. Personally, I am never exempted of that. Nobody else. And yet it doesn't mean we make peace with sin. It does not mean that we would let sin reign in our life or rule over us, but that David shows a repentant heart, a heart that still trusts the Lord's unfailing love. So situations would come, circumstances would vary every day, or at certain seasons in our lives. But what really matters the most is the response that we do after. David could choose to run away from the Lord. He could choose to do that sin again and again, maybe, or I don't know what else could happen. He was a king. He was a king. He had the power. He had the wealth to do anything he would wanted, and maybe somehow that was the root why it happened in the first place. But then, when he received that conviction, when I think Nathan was the prophet of the Lord, touched and used to convict, to bring that rebuke to David, he admitted it. He acknowledged his sin. He asked forgiveness. He asked God to renew him, and he asked God to help him use his sin to touch those who are engaged in sin and are in need of repentance. And that was answered. Even right now, that is already answered, I believe, because personally, that is its impact to me. It did not encourage me to do sin more, but it encouraged me that if he was brought back to the Lord because he desired to go back to him, then it could possibly, and it is possible to happen with me, because God is able, because he is our healer. And I'm having this time a very close look at David's life. So excuse me for the bread and for the food, and beside me, of course, I'm in our table. So this is the title of my quiet time right now. This is a different book. I'm using a lot of resources. So this one is, I don't know if it's readable, but it's David's unique ability. So that's taken from 1 Samuel 16 verses 16 to 18. What was funny, because last night my aunt and me were talking about praise and worship theme. I was saying that when I was in the Philippines, I regard myself that with playing the instruments, it's really, 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 really small. Of course, I've been more focused on singing and leading and worship leading. So when the pastor here asked me, are you able to play any instrument? And I said I knew, but of course just really, 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 really basic in guitar, basic in keyboard, in drums, in bass. And yes, really, really basic. That's 0.05%. If I'm going to compare it to the worship team that I've got along with when I was in the Philippines. So today's quiet time is very, very encouraging. This one from this book, Great Days with Great Lives. So this is actually is a gift from my boyfriend. So it is a blessing indeed. The Lord had used this book, and aside from that, going back, so this quiet time right now is there is a certain line that really touched my heart. You may think some skill you have learned or used years ago is lost, or that you've wasted all the time doing whatever, but don't you believe it? So I was really encouraged. Yes, I have been, I was just thinking, I learned keyboard, I learned guitar, I learned bass, and